All right, dismiss, dismiss. All right, I've got you on my favorite little mode. Everybody who can, turn your cameras on now so that we can start as a class together. We can let Rod see the faces of all the handsome Dutch who are joining us for the day. I'm going to unspotlight Rod just so that we can see our class better. You can see what a handsome crew we have here this year. Some of them are, and we've been practicing. We've only been together once, but we've been practicing. We've got to go like 1, 2, 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3 to the left. Come on, Dutch. 1, 2, 3 to the right, 1, 2, 3 to the left. See, there you go. This is a good crew, and we've got 57 people here this year, Rod. But what's neat about the way that the Dutch have put together is it's more aptitude and skill driven than it is content driven. So it's very much learning how to do things like solve problems with technology or critically thinking about an investment opportunity. One of my favorite things is they also prioritize what they call self-leadership, which means it's your job to get on your bike to get downtown to work, and it's not your wife's job or your children's job to wake you up, remind you, because you have to be responsible for it, because eventually, one day, like you, Rod, they will ascend into leadership positions where their responsibility is on themselves. So I really like that. So these are 38 of them here today. What I'm going to do to begin with is paste into the chat box the exact same thing that I had sent to you yesterday, Rod, just to give them a more detailed agenda in terms of what we're going to try to accomplish today. So I'm on point 1. I'd like to introduce this agenda. I want to talk about the tech rules just so that we can all stay current. Then I'm going to introduce Rod. Then I'm going to ask Rod to just introduce himself for a few minutes. And then I have a questionnaire that I gave Rod, and we're just going to have a conversation about him as a Chicagoan and as an investor so that you can get some sense of what's important to him in his perspectives. In section 5 now, so here comes my tech rules. All right, so tech rules. Number 1, I'm going to spotlight Rod. So in just a few moments, I'm going to invite you to turn your cameras off because you won't need them. When we get to step 5, though, on open Q&A, I'd like us to turn our cameras back on again so it feels more like a dialogue. So for a while, you're going to watch the TV program called Al Interviewing Rod, and then after that, I would like to have the environment be more interactive again. While we are talking, though, I would like you to, if you have questions, please post them in the chat box, and I'll moderate the chat box so that if questions come up, I can go ahead and incorporate those into our discussion. Beyond chat box questions, then, when we get to step 5, I'll also, now that your cameras are on, ask, would anybody like to ask an actual question? In which case, raising your hand feature would be most appreciated. And then I'll call on you and I'll ask, all right, Lars, what was it that you wanted to ask Rod? And then Lars would be welcome to go ahead and unmute his microphone and then make his quick question to Rod. And then Rod can go ahead and answer that. So I'll moderate that person and then we'll say our grand goodbyes to you. So hopefully that sounds like a reasonable agenda. Thumbs up from the students. Is that okay from you all? All right. See how fun it is when they participate physically, Rod? That's cool. All right. Now watch this. Ready, students? On the count of 3, I want you to turn your cameras off. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Cameras off. Look at them all disappearing.
Nice.
There you go. Now, what we're going to do is I would suggest that everybody has on, Sam, you still got your camera on. If you want to go ahead and turn that off, Sam. What I'm going to do is, that's all right, you're a handsome dude. I'm going to spotlight you, Rod. And so right now, as far as I know, you are the only person that everybody can see with the exception of my picture. I'm down in the lower right, and so they can see me, They can see you. And now you and I get to have a conversation with 30-some Dutch eavesdropping on us. Doesn't that sound fantastic?
Let's do it.
So you called me a couple of weeks ago and invited me to go on a bike ride with you, which you know I'm always very hesitant to do, because what is the longest you've ever ridden your bike in a single stretch in terms of hours?
Oh, longest in terms of hours would probably be about 12 or 14 hours. I did a 205-mile ride, was kind of my longest.
A 205-mile. Dutch, I have no idea what that is in kilometers. Rod,
Yeah,
do you know what that?
I think that's like 320 kilometers or something like that.
So you did 320 kilometers at a stretch. So this is who our guest speaker is.
I do love to ride my bike. That's my thing that I'm super into.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Dutch, do me a favor. Someone in the chat box, can you chat whether or not Rod is lagging on you on his video? Because, Rod, we may have you log off and log back on again just in case. I want to make sure that this isn't me. I want to make sure everybody can hear okay. Yes, he is lagging, says the Lars. Do you want to go ahead?
Computer. I'm going to disconnect on this one and
okay.
Join the other one.
Got it. All right. I'll bring you in over there. Oh, we're gonna have, yep. All right, so where did you go over here, Rod? Because I just saw you said that you were coming here. All right, there you are.
All right, is this one any better?
Much better. Dutch, is that better? Way better. Good job. Good job. Look at it. Call the IT guy.
Yeah, right.
He fixed it.
Well, that's why I had an extra one standing by.
Well done. All right, great. So now we can go back to where we were. So, as a reminder to Rod, the purpose of this class, if we could, we would have come down and visited you like I used to with my other students, and you would have had a bevy of bike riders on the shop floor with us. Because what the purpose of our class, since they cannot join us physically, is to try to give them some good sense of using a virtual medium, what life is like for people who live in Chicago, who are engaged in professional endeavors that include both their work lives as well as an extension into their investing lives, where our focus, we're going to try to become, as a class, better experts at helping investors in the world. So we have 3 different speakers that we're going to be engaged with. One represents an investor, someone who has, an extra €5 somewhere and isn't sure what to do with it. That's you. Second person that we represent is then what would be a holistic investment advisor. Someone who would look at your entire portfolio and say, your equity in your business, plus your cash accounts, plus your stock, plus your IRAs, plus your commercial property, all that. Here is what I recommend for you as it relates to, wait, is your daughter, did she go off to college yet?
Yeah, Zoe was at Cornell, but she's back home now. She came home just before Thanksgiving, and she'll be back until mid-February.
Wonderful. So she did get to go to campus.
Yeah.
Got to live in the dorms and lead a quote-unquote normal student life for a while.
Yeah, which she enjoyed. She liked the. She's a freshman. She enjoyed the independent living.
Yeah, Violet, same. She's home now too from Seattle, and all she keeps talking about is like 5 more weeks till I go back.
Yeah, that's how it should be.
So, Rod, as an investor, then we also will interview a gentleman named Tim Rose, who's a holistic person who would help you with financial planning as it relates to, sending Zoe off to college or saving for your wife's brand new Tesla for her 50th birthday or whatever it is that you plan to do. And then someone you and I know well, Matt Bauman, who would represent an individual who has a particular investment idea for which he would want to encourage your participation. The students ultimately will make to me and to one of my colleagues a presentation as if they were Matt Bauman presenting to you. That's the context.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to help them understand is not everybody in the world is like me or Matt Bauman. Not everybody is a finance-minded, numbers spreadsheet investor. Some of us go to work, have real jobs, deal with people issues, deal with product issues, and investing is a side thing that requires us to establish a significant amount of trust. And so what I'd like to do today is just have them get to understand you a little bit better so they get a perspective of what goes on in investors' heads. So with that in mind, why don't you just introduce yourself to us so they have a sense of who you are and what you do in the world and where you come from, etc.
Okay, sure. Thank you. So my name is Rod Berthold. I am president and owner of Gus Berthold Electric Company. You may notice that my last name is the same as the company name. Gus Berthold was my great-grandfather. He started this company in 1925. I'm the fourth generation to run this company, which is a legacy that I take a lot of pride in. It's it's pretty uncommon to have a company handed through that many generations. I've been working here since 1997. I've been president of the company since about 2004. I have a degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Illinois. We, as a company, manufacture electrical power distribution equipment. So if you think about the circuit breaker panel in your house, we build big industrial size versions of that. We're a fairly small company. We have 26 employees, including 8 in the office, and then the remainder in the hourly workers in the shop that do the manufacturing. Our niche is in high quality, custom configuration, and short lead time. So we build specialty electrical equipment. We also have a lot of business in the telecom industry. So we do a lot of specialty DC equipment that we sell nationwide, all around the country, around the United States, pretty much all US-based business. A lot of what we manufacture here in our shop, we ship out and it gets installed in telecommunications switching facilities, various places throughout the country. So that's kind of my quick introduction. Al, what have I missed?
No, that's fantastic. I'm trying to find here on your website, what would you suggest is a good picture for them to take a look at one of what your standard products would be? Like I am seeing here, let's see, I'm going to show them and maybe you can describe, for example, this product, because it's always been fascinating to me. I'm going to have to take a look. Can you see the screen in front of you there, Rod? This is your website. So what are these things that I'm seeing?
I'm only seeing myself on this.
Oh, you know what? Let me stop spotlighting you.
And when we switched over to the new computer, I'm only getting a video of myself, not, I don't see you or anything else right now, and mine's frozen up real quick.
Oh, well, students, were you able to see what I was presenting up there in terms of this picture of low voltage switchboards?
Oh, here we go. I got you now. Yeah. So
yeah,
that low voltage switchboards, you're seeing a circuit breaker. So that circuit breaker that's there, we purchased that from Eaton, which is one of the major national electrical manufacturers. But then we built the structure, all the sheet metal, the doors, the sheet metal doors and things like that. We designed this. We bought all of those little lights and things. We wired things in. The photo at the bottom, quick ship bus fabrication, that is a good example of the type of copper that we work with. Typically in a lot of the switchboards and other equipment that we build, the electrical conductor, a piece of wire would just be too small to handle the amount of current that our switchboards distribute. So we use bars of copper like that to be attached to insulators so that they aren't, so that they're electrically isolated, and use the bars of copper to conduct the current through the equipment.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always found fascinating is some of the scale of some of the equipment, some of the sizes of what you produce is just massive. Like what are the weights that you're dealing with some of your products? Like how significant are they in terms of size and density and scale and whatnot?
Yeah, so it's a lot of times it's big, heavy stuff. I mean, copper itself is very dense and heavy, and so and we'll build switchboards that are 36 inches wide by 42 inches deep by 96 inches high, taller than a person, and weigh several thousand pounds.
And now when you're sending those products that you're producing that weigh several thousand pounds to an end user, what's that shipping process like? How do you get that 1,000 pounds worth of thing there?
Yeah, we put it onto a skid, a pallet. A lot of times we build our own skids because a lot of times the stuff that we build is long and narrow and very heavy. And then we typically strap it to that skid, either bolt it down or strap it with metal banding, wrap it with shrink wrap, and then it goes on a truck. So a truck comes to our loading dock and gets loaded on there. It gets handled with either a forklift or pallet trucks.
Mm-hmm. And so it is eventually shipped via truck to the end user coming out of your Chicago-based location using the network of transportation systems available in the Chicago area.
Right, yeah, we're typically shipping via LTL, which is less than truckload. So we have shippers that will either summon them online or call them, and they come and pick up and deliver it to wherever it's going to. And then typically that equipment gets installed by an electrical at the end user's facility. Mm-hmm. And some of our end users are companies like Verizon Wireless, and Northwestern University is a big customer of ours. We sell a lot of things to telecom installers, DC telecom installers that are installing things at Comcast facilities, things like that.
Mm-hmm. So would you say, though, being located in the Midwest, especially Chicago, given its transportation system and its centrality, gives you the ability to ship possibly these giant things with a little more ease than if you were located in Arkansas, let's say?
Probably so. I mean, typically we'll call a truck by noon for a delivery that day and they'll come pick it up by 3 p.m. And a lot of destinations are only 1 or 2 days away. California is one that'll take 3 or 4 days, but most of the rest of them, they go pretty quickly. So being in Chicago is convenient that way and good for reducing lead times, which is important because a lot of times our customers, they are working on a construction project that can't be delayed, and so they want things in a timely fashion, and so to get them quickly is important.
Mm-hmm. So you said you have between 20 and 30 employees, and would you mind, I know you're very transparent, and I've been intentional with these students of giving them the fuzzies in the beginning and not giving them numbers yet because I don't want to overwhelm, but later this week we're going to do a ton of numbers. So are you grabbing for your numbers for me?
Yes.
You knew I was going to ask. So with 20 to 30, look at this, it's great. With 20 to 30 employees then, could you give us some sense, 2019 then, let's look at that one since you have a complete year. Approximate revenues, ballpark 2019?
8.3 million.
8.3 million in total revenues. How does that compare to your historic revenues?
That is the last few years, that's pretty typical. Our business is sized well to make a good profit between $7 to $9 million. Years when business is lower than that, we tend to just make less profit. Years when business is higher than that, we make more profit and have to work overtime in order to keep up with it. I like working overtime as a means of increasing our manufacturing capacity temporarily. It's better than hiring additional workers because if we've got additional workers when business slows down, if we have more workers than we need, then we have to pay them and it's harder to make a profit. So you need to size the business based on kind of typical revenue, but that will vary from year to year, especially with a kind of the custom nature of the work that we do.
And so 7 to 9 million range of average revenues. What's been kind of your high water mark in the last 10 years or so, would you say?
Let's see, in the last 10 years, probably, I think we had a year that was $12 million, and that was a great, real strong year. Going back even farther, we had a time when basically during the telecom boom in the early 2000s, our revenue was $20 million one year. But then when there was kind of that bust afterwards, our revenue dropped the next year to 10 million and the following year to 5 million. So we went in the space of 2 years from 20 million to 5 million in revenue, and we lost a lot of money for 3 years in a row. before I kind of figured out how to adjust the size of the business and the scale and the scope of it in order to accommodate some of the ups and downs.
Mm-hmm. So at the 7 to 9 million revenue range, approximately what percent of your costs go into cost of goods, paying for the materials and paying for all of your shop labor? That would imagine is your significant expense.
Yeah, you're right. Material expenses typically in the range of 42 to 48% of revenue. So, and we know that this varies a little bit depending upon the mix of work that we do. And some jobs are more material intensive, some jobs are more labor intensive. And so that'll account for the variation in materials as a percent of revenue. Typically, labor as a percent of revenue is like 21 to 23%. Then the remainder is in administration expenses, basically all the overhead, the office, the things that you need to run a business that don't directly contribute to production. So they're not raw materials like copper, they're not labor, they're not machinery. It's things like the phone bill and the internet expense and insurance and things like that. And that'll vary 18%, something like that, of revenue. But obviously that's more or less a fixed cost, which the percentage goes up and down depending upon the total revenue.
Okay. So then one of the things that I always think is important for young students to understand from a finance point of view, that as an owner, you are a paid employee as well, part of the what you call administrative or office expenses, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So at least you get to get a paycheck whether or not you are profitable.
Yeah.
But imagine from 20 million down to 5 million, the amount of your profits every year can vacillate greatly.
For sure.
What is your general perspective then when you do have profit? Do you save it for a rainy day? Do you go out and buy yourself a brand new bike? Do you distribute it to the employees? What's the attitude there?
Yeah, so my philosophy that way is typically at the end of the year, take the profits and split them three ways. About a third return to the employees in the form of bonuses. And that amount varies depending upon the employee and their role. We've got sort of a system that we use for shop employee bonuses that has two factors. It is based on one half is the base bonus, which is a formula which says company made X% of profit, you get Y% of your pay as a bonus. And then the other part of it is discretionary, where it's just, hey, Bob, you did a great job. Here's some money for you. So anyway, end of the year profit, 1/3 pay back to my employees in the form of bonuses. 1/3 goes to retained earnings. Basically, we just keep it in the bank and use it for future expenses. It's money in the bank that we can use when we need to upgrade the plant, if we need a new piece of machinery, when we have unexpected, any kind of expenses. And then the remaining 1/3 typically gets returned to ownership in the form of distributions. Now, it just so happens that I'm the sole 100% owner of the company now, so that's really the majority of my compensation typically in any one year is the return of profit. There is about $200,000 of that profit that is the return of ownership that goes to paying my parents for the stock of the company that I bought back from them years ago. So I'm paying them off over time, essentially, to buy the business. It's sort of like having a mortgage.
Sure. So in round numbers, let's say we have a $10 million revenue year. Approximately what percent of that would you expect to fall to profit? 3%, 5%?
Oh, no, we're fortunate in that we are in a very, very high margin business. The custom nature of the work we do lends itself to a higher margin than you would get in more of a commodity business where you're building thousands and thousands of the same thing. We're building one thing at a time. So our profit margin at the end of the year is typically around 20%.
Typically around 20% in any given year. Okay.
Yeah, and that's pretty high compared to a lot of businesses, although not necessarily. That's how just sort of the nature of our business, I guess.
Got it. So without getting too personal, then, if I can summarize, so if you have 10 million in revenues, approximately 20% of that goes to profit, and a third of that 20% goes to ownership, not then considering your parents right now, but then that third of that 20% is Rod's profit for the year that he now can decide whether or not he's going to pay Cornell tuition
Right.
or buy himself. So
Right.
presumably you've been doing this for how long then? Since 94?
Well, no, working here since 1997.
97.
Company since 2004, but really the full owner of the company since about 2010, I think. So about 10 years.
So let's say you have about your 10-year anniversary right now. Great. So if we were to presume, then let's say for the last 10 years on average, Rod has had the opportunity to share in profits to the tune of about $50,000 on average a year. That might mean you might have upwards of $500,000 in which you could invest in anything from your retirement to your boats to anything else that you are interested in. Is that fair to try to? I'm trying to thumbnail a number that they'll use later.
Yeah, no. I somehow didn't add things up correctly.
Okay.
No,
or is it just me? For some reason, I can't see him.
Mine's kind of frozen right now.
Your what?
Mine is frozen. My video is frozen right now.
Your video is frozen right now.
Yeah, I'm on this other computer that it has a Wi-Fi connection.
Got it.
The Wi-Fi signal is great here.
Well, let me suggest this then, if we don't mind. Why don't we all take just a 5-minute technology break here? And then, Rod, if you'd like, why don't you get yourself squared away on the one that you're more comfortable with? Maybe we just have to leave the meeting and come back in, and we'll see if we can't get your video. Because you're so handsome, I would hate for them to miss the opportunity to see your smiling face while presenting.
Sounds good. I'll set myself up in a different location.
All right, gang. Hey, let's all reconvene in about 5 minutes, okay? We'll try to solve this technology issue. Thanks for your patience.
Sure.
All right, I'm in a different location that's closer to the Wi-Fi router. Is this any better?
You're not frozen to me anymore, so I think it is.
The lighting's maybe not as good here, but
You've reseated yourself into the principal's office?
yeah, I basically went over to a different office that's closer to the Wi-Fi router.
So do you have any bike trips planned here for the next several months, or are you on the lam until things are normal?
Man, I was supposed to this fall in mid-August to mid-September be riding my bike across the country again.
Really?
I was going to do a 32-day trip I think it's going to be 28 days from San Diego to Savannah, Georgia. But then when COVID hit, that got canceled. So now my next trip planned is going to be the northern route of that cross-country trip next summer. Hopefully that'll go off in mid-July. It'll basically be the same trip I did in 2016 from Seattle to Boston.
You start in Seattle? Well, then you can take Violet out to dinner when you're out there.
Outstanding. Well, my sister lives in Seattle too, so she can join us.
That would be wonderful. All right, gang. Does this work now? I think it's gotten itself back square from my perspective. I logged off and logged back on. You can see
Yeah.
video again. You can hear audio. Can someone just chat me up, make sure I'm okay?
It's okay to me.
All right, Sam. Thank you. All right, so let's go ahead because I know, Rod, you have a busy day and we want to get to the heart of the matter now, which we began discussing a little bit, which is, so with what you've described in terms of your success as a small business owner, it has given you the opportunity to become an investor as well. So now when it comes to investing, tell us, are you an expert investor?
Yeah, most definitely not. It's interesting because I'm an engineer, as I mentioned, and when it comes to financials, really, that document that I held up in front of the camera, that's our income statement that I analyze. It took me quite a while to learn how to understand and read that income statement, and that was one of the things that I kind of got dragged kicking and screaming into doing when I became president of the company and realized that I needed to be able to understand, be literate financially when it comes to my company's income statement in order to figure out how to make it successful. So it took me a while, but I was able to figure that out pretty well. But it took a lot of time and effort. And when it comes to investing my personal funds, again, I don't have the time and effort to spend on doing a lot of analysis of things and figuring out how to invest things. I remember back in my 20s trying to learn some of those things and investing in some different individual stocks, many of which just tanked and I did terribly. I got discouraged. On my own, if I was investing my own money, I would probably just be putting it into mutual funds, into the S&P 500 index fund, something like that, that is basically following the market. And they say that pretty much managed mutual funds, none of them are able to beat the market. So you might as well be in an index fund that's going to at least match the market. But I know we're talking about commercial real estate investing. And if I'm not jumping ahead too much here, okay, I'll tell you that that's one of the things that I've gotten into to diversify my investments a little bit, rather than, I've got enough money in the stock market to say, well, if there's some opportunities elsewhere that I could potentially make a little bit better return, and maybe they're a little bit riskier, but I've got the money available to do that. This isn't my kids' college education money that I'm investing. It's extra money, and so I'd like to get a little bit better return if I can from it. But again, that's something that I don't know how to do on my own. Fortunately, I know Matt Bauman, and he is a guy who that is his business is investing in commercial real estate. Because I'm personal friends with him, I sort of learned that he does this. I hit him up once and said, hey, I might be interested in getting in on some of the commercial real estate investments that you do. And so most of my real estate investment is through him. I'm essentially using him to select investments and trusting him to do a better job than I could on my own to analyze and invest in commercial real estate.
Mm-hmm. So with having money to work with, do you have any specific goals for yourself? Are you trying to fund so that you can take a 1-year vacation every year? Are you trying to build up a lake house, or do you have an idea of what you would like your money to do for you?
Really, I guess my main driver for that is just that I've got this extra money available and I'd like it to be working for me. I don't have any particular goals. I have way more money than I need. I live below my means. My wife and I are not fancy people. We're not out buying vacation homes and lake houses and spare cars and fancy clothes and jewelry and things like that. We do like to take nice vacations. So when, my wife loves taking cruises, and she goes on all these cruises all the time. And we found that, as we've been able to afford it, we've been able to kind of dial up the quality of the vacations that we've done a little bit more. But it's not like there's any particular need driving it. I've got more money than I need. So it's just a matter of taking the money that I've got and putting it to work for me.
What about those two lovely daughters of yours, though? Do you intend to at least pass along some generational wealth so that their life isn't as arduous as yours and mine has been?
Right. Well, certainly, well, you mentioned my older daughter Zoe, who is going to Cornell, and it's ironic because she was a National Merit Scholar finalist, and my wife said, boy, she could get pretty much a free ride at almost any college except Cornell, except one of the Ivy League universities. So instead of her going to a state school like the University of Illinois, where I went to school, or well, you and I both, and Matt, or to one of the places that would give her a scholarship, we're paying for a very expensive Ivy League education for her. But I'm very fortunate that it doesn't matter. I've got plenty of money. I can easily afford it. So I'm happy that she is going to this place that she feels is the best opportunity for her. And she'll be able to come out of college with no debt. And that all works out well. So it's nice to have enough money to solve problems, to throw some money at something and just take care of it and not have to worry about it.
Yeah. Side note, did you know that Violet's studying mechanical engineering now?
Oh, that's awesome. Good for her. I'm proud of that.
In this past semester, they made her assemble a 3D printer,
Cool.
design a prosthetic device, have it printed on the printer, use it, and then disassemble the printer.
Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
That I was always surprised at is when I was in college, the lack of physical mechanical skills of so many of my fellow mechanical engineers. And I had worked at a bicycle shop all through high school, and so I learned a lot of things about why would you use a certain size bolt here, or how do things mechanically work. So it's great to hear that they're giving her some more hands-on challenges, because having some mechanical aptitude is very useful when you're designing a piece of equipment.
Yeah. So with the bike in mind and the fact that you like to touch things, does that play into commercial real estate? Do you like investing in something you can see and touch versus just a piece of paper that's a stock?
Not that specifically so much, but one of the reasons that I like real estate investing is that it seems like, as opposed to investing in a company, real estate, I'm not going to lose all my money. A company might go bankrupt. A company might, your investment might go to zero. With real estate, probably what's going to happen is that I'll have to wait longer in order for, if commercial real estate values went down, I'd have to wait longer to get out of that investment and make my money. But it's not going to go away. They're not making more property. They're not making more land. And typically the buildings and things like that, they're insured. So there's, I feel like, less chance of loss, less of a potential downside in real estate than there is with other investments.
Got it. So you've mentioned several times, much to my jealousy, that you have enough money, and that's a nice thing. But do you have anything that keeps you from thinking about working, for example? Do you have a retirement plan in place? Do you want to be done with this in 5 years? Or are there any things that you're starting to think about that might change Rod's life in the future?
I love my job. I love coming to work every day. It's a big part of my identity. I get a lot of satisfaction out of knowing that I'm running this fourth generation company and that it's supporting 25 other people and their families. So I don't need to work, but I like to work, and I plan to continue to work for a long time. I don't have any retirement plans yet. I do find myself taking more vacations, more long bike trips, because I said, oh, well, I can do that. And also, especially, I can do things from the computer while I'm away, things like that. In the long term, one of the things I think about is succession planning for the business. When I am ready to retire, what are we going to do then? My two daughters, they have no interest in the business whatsoever. They're off. Zoe's going to be working for Google or Facebook or something, doing app development and coding. Callie, she's got a dermatologist. We'll see how that pans out. she's a freshman in high school right now, or sophomore rather. So
Yeah.
we'll see how that happens. Anyway, I do have a niece on my wife's side who is interested in possibly coming to work at the company one day. Again, she's 16, so who knows how that's going to pan out. But that seems like a good opportunity. She's tough. She is stubborn and tough, which you kind of need to be tough in business because, and I wouldn't say that I'm necessarily a tough person, but I've toughened up over the years as I've learned that I'm the one in charge. I'm the one who is responsible. And so nobody's got the answers. I have to figure them out and I have to make them happen. So especially when things are difficult, I've got to figure out how to run the company correctly. And there's nothing I can do that's going to make everybody happy. So I have to figure out what's best for the company and best for me and run it that way. So you've got to have somebody kind of tough to do that. So hopefully my niece might wind up being that person eventually. If not, I get offers all the time of people that are interested in buying the company. I actually get two kinds of unsolicited calls. One is we're interested in buying the company. Two is we're interested in buying your property, because where we're at, city of Chicago on the near west side, we're about 4 blocks due north of the United Center where the Chicago Bulls play. We're in a area that's currently zoned for industrial use and manufacturing, but there is more and more both residential and large office stuff moving west toward us. Just a couple of miles east of us near the expressway there's Google came in, McDonald's headquarters, big companies. And so there's more and more push to develop west. And I think some of the real estate speculators call, and there are 27,000 square foot building and the property that we're on.
Yeah, if for the Dutch who haven't been here yet, what they need to understand, I'm trying to explain to them about our particular city, is that we have this basic downtown area, which has been historically the centrum, as they would call it, but the expansion was first all northwest. But in the last 20 years, it's been primarily west, and the south side is still, shall we say, evolving in terms of its commercial property. So your location right here, where you're proximal to all of the major expressways, you're how many miles to downtown are you? Just 4 maybe? 3 miles. 3 miles to downtown. United Center is what, right over here?
Just south of us, like
it's
4
just
blocks south of us.
South of you guys. Okay, great. So you are in a high demand type area that makes not only your business attractive, but it makes your real estate in and of itself attractive. Got it.
Yeah, and it's zoned industrial right now. The area that we're at is a industrial corridor. So basically the city has designated this as an area where they want to encourage manufacturing to move and stay in this area because it creates a good tax revenue base for the city. And so they don't want to open it up to residential development because they want to be able to get the tax revenue that you get from manufacturing businesses.
Right.
However, I think there's a lot of real estate speculation on the part of the developers that maybe they'll change that zoning one day. And if they do, the property suddenly becomes more valuable because of its proximity to downtown and the fact that you could tear down my building and build a big, high rise of apartments here or something like that.
Yeah, which is exactly what they did to my uncle at 1050 West Van Buren.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And that development keeps getting pushed west. And I'm a member of a manufacturers advocacy organization called the Industrial Council of Near West Chicago. They are representing the interests of manufacturers like me, and one of their strong points is trying to maintain the industrial zoning in this area so that it doesn't turn into residential use, so that it doesn't drive out the manufacturers that are here, but instead that we keep the property taxes at a reasonable level and the infrastructure around us. Like for instance, nearby, just a few blocks away, we've got another industrial business that's a hardware supplier. they come in and restock all of our nuts and bolts and all the different hardware that we use twice a week because we need them regularly. And to be able to have the like you mentioned, the access to the expressways, we can get the trucks that come in here quickly, large semi trucks to load our equipment, and we get FedEx and UPS deliveries all the time and things like that. So being in an industrial zone where all that stuff is going on is useful. There's synergies among the different businesses in this area.
Mm-hmm. So we have only about 10 minutes or so I want to be respectful of your time. You mentioned before that you invest in some commercial real estate primarily because you and Matt and I are U of I grads and Park Ridge members, and so we've gotten this relationship together. But you also mentioned, you have some investments in the stock market. What does your portfolio look like on a percentage basis? Do you have any idea of what percent of your money is in stock versus bonds versus commercial real estate?
My wife mostly handles our personal investing. We've probably got about. Do you want me to use dollar amounts, or do you want percentages?
Probably percentages is more comfortable.
Okay. So probably of the money that we have available to invest in, to invest, probably about half of it is in mutual funds. Again, index funds, primarily the S&P 500 index fund and a few other ones that are more technology oriented and things like that. She's got a few stock investments. One of the things that we really get a kick out of is when I bought my Tesla in 2013, 7 years ago. I was talking about the car. She bought some stock, and the stock that she bought has paid for the car. So it's fun to have a thing like that. And she's got a few individual stocks, some of which have been very successful like that. Other ones not so much. But about half in stocks, and then probably another 30 or 40% in different real estate deals. I've got a bunch in commercial real estate, plus some like housing subdivisions that were through a guy that Matt knows that are in the Atlanta area, and some in Chicago some in Florida, because those are just kind of booming areas where I'm a part owner of a subdivision, for instance. And then the remainder, we've got some in cash.
Got it. Great. Well, that was a wealth of information for us. And I've got our first question that came up from Anna Maria, who wanted to know, as an investor during this pandemic, because the stock market has been so volatile, have you thought about it, or have you and your wife talked about, like, hey, maybe we should get out of the market, maybe we should just buy more real estate, or have you just been sitting hoping that you don't fall apart?
Yeah, so I'm not paying that close attention on a day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month basis on our investments. My wife does. She likes to think that she can time the market. I'm teasing her about that because historically nobody can time the market really effectively. But she'll say, "Oh no, well I'm going to buy when." And she, to be fair, she is strong when it comes to when the market dips. She'll tend to buy more, which is when you want to. When everybody else is selling and getting out because they're afraid, she'll buy more because the prices are lower and we can get more. And then when the market's high, we don't buy so much. We just sit there and wait. So the pandemic gave us an opportunity. She did go on a little bit of a buying spree in the spring when things were down some. She said, well, in hindsight, I should have gotten more. Well, of course, in hindsight, you're always going to think that. But she's doing a little bit of that. When it comes to the real estate investing, the pandemic hasn't really affected me at all. I'm just primarily going with Matt's recommendations on things, and I don't think anything new has really come up lately. Some of the properties aren't doing as well as they would in the economy right now, but mostly they're not income-based properties for the most part anyway.
Yeah, so I will be going on site with Matt with them next week, and one of the questions I have teed up for him is his perspective on whether or not commercial real estate investment will change, because, as you know, a lot of his buildings are office buildings, where he has had, the dentist's office has had 20% capacity for the last year or so, But the financial services office, zero. Nobody's there.
Yeah.
And so will that make a significant change? So, all right. So I see that Lars is asking a question too, but I think I know the answer to this is I don't know. Are any of your investments in ETFs or only index funds? Do you know that answer? Should I answer I don't know for you?
I mostly don't know. Yeah, my wife handles that end of things.
Okay. So when it comes then, Anna Maria is very now asking a second question. Wonderful. So do you think about investing in more of a long-term basis? It sounds to me like you're kind of passive, like you're not worried about what's happening every day, where she's more tied into like, oh my God, it's an earnings announcement today. I better make sure I'm ready to pull the trigger and buy something. So you're more passive. Would that be an accurate way of thinking of your style?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got my active attention is on my business, Gus Berthold Electric, managing this business and what's going on here. I don't have the inclination or the time to be spending a lot of time paying attention to my investments, and that's just sort of the way I work. And when it comes to the commercial real estate stuff, basically, Matt Bauman will come to me when he's got opportunities. If I've got money available to invest, great. And then I let him worry about it. He can do all that day to day worrying about things. And back, and every once in a while I'll get a check from him, and I'll say, "Oh, fantastic, good, I got some money."
Now, when he does come to you though with an initial idea for an investment property, are there a couple of questions you ask, like where is it, or what is it, or what do you expect? I mean, I have to think you're a little more discreet than that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, Matt generally is vetting things for me in advance. He's not coming to me with anything that he doesn't think would fit in with my needs and the amount of money that I've got available to invest in something. So he'll tell me, "Oh yeah, this property, I think it's going to be, it's going to return a 8% return based on the regular income that we get from the rent and things like that, and we plan to sell it in 2 to 5 years." At which point we get out of the investment and hopefully there's some appreciation. So he'll tell me a little bit about some of the details of that. Oh, this is a strip mall in Evergreen Park, and it's got this building in it, and we're going to do this to improve it, or we're going to tear it down and build a new thing or whatever. Honestly, I don't really care that much. I just want, I like that I've got a guy that is knowledgeable and experienced, and that is, in my mind, trustworthy, that is paying attention to these things, so that I've got a place that I can invest some money that's hopefully got greater upside potential than the traditional stock market investment, since I've got this extra money available. And really, I'm following his recommendations largely.
Gotcha. So another question then is there something that, for example, me talking to Matt about commercial property futures, is there something that would cause you to change your investment attitude? Let's say that, we read an article that says nobody's ever going back to the office. Would you call up Matt and be like, get me out of all of your investments right now?
I don't think so. A lot of the investments we're in, they're not. I know that they're not very liquid investments, and that's one of the things that all my stock investments, we can sell them whenever we want if we need some extra cash.
Yeah.
But the real estate investments, I'm tied in as long as we own it, and if I wanted to get out of something, he'd have to find someone else to get back in and take my place, or wait until the property sells or whatever. So I know going into it, this is money that is going to be illiquid.
Yeah, so I think that addresses a question that Brad was asking about, length of investing, which is, as someone walking into commercial property who has more of a passive approach, you're recognizing I'm in this for 5 to 7 to 10 years. It's not your wife trading a Tesla option and worried about every day, every week, every month. So it's a very different strategy.
Yeah, for sure.
Excellent. Well, there were a couple other questions here, but out of respect for time, I want to go ahead. I know you have a busy day in front of you. I'd like to just invite everybody to turn their cameras back on, please. I'm going to stop spotlighting Rod so that he can see that there were a bunch of faces for us that are actually live people behind this this application. And I'm going to put us all back into our little classroom here. And then I will just say, I, on behalf of the Acceleration Academy at Fontys University in Eindhoven of the Netherlands, am very appreciative, Rod, of your taking time with us to do your original interview, as well as now taking time for us to do this live interview again. As I discussed, you represent to us the model of success. The man who has taken a family business which was successful and taken it to another level, to the point where he can care not only for his family but the families of his employees, and has been put into a position where he has the opportunity to do some investing. But you're a quality human being who has a heart that beats strongly, and I'm glad that you shared both that heart and your mind with us today. And I'm very appreciative for both your professional and personal friendship, Rod.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I appreciate it, and it's always a pleasure to be a part of this.
You betcha. So I'm going to invite Rod to hang up, and then for the students who are here, I'm just going to talk to you for 1 minute maximum, and then I'll let you go for the day, and we'll see you another time. Thanks, Rod.
Signing off. Take care. Thank you. Bye.
Bye. All right, let's make sure. So we're still being recorded, so I'm going to record this really quickly for everybody, just so that you can hear my approach, right? So you noticed that I was typing my questions in the chat box while I was going along for you. You noticed that the first half of the conversation was really not specific to investing, because I know Rod from my own personal life well enough to know you can't just go there with him. It makes him uncomfortable. There is a trust factor involved. So a lot of the first half of that conversation was just getting him to get comfortable with talking. And once I heard him disclose on his own a big number is when we could do our actual work. You heard him say, right, for the last 10 years, from his IRS perspective, his income is about $1.7 million per year. So you imagine that someone like Rod has at least a $10 million net worth, of which he allocates a percentage of it to go into commercial real estate. So our main reason for having him on today, you heard, was to give you an example of if and when you now in your project are ready to make a pitch to Maurice. Maurice is the Rod in our presentation. How would you address Maurice to get him to part with however much you think you want to ask him for to invest in the commercial property that you're recommending? So hopefully, was that valuable? Dude, I tell you from my point of view, right? Like, Rod's my buddy. He lives 5 blocks away from me, and we do ride bikes periodically. I knew he made money. I didn't know he made $2 million a year. Like, holy shit, why am I paying for lunch? Right? Like, yeah, his everyday. So you heard him say, and by the way, I'm going to stop recording. Bye, stop recording.